Oh, does that work?
Yeah, there you go. You're there though, right?
Technology.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, for joining us. So just hang tight for a little while, and we'll come to you eventually.
Sweet.
Thanks, buddy. Bye. Fitzy, you okay? You got some sound?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me, Bill?
Yeah, mic check, mic check. This is our, sound check like bands do. And the lucky few that are in now are those ones that have the VIP passes that get to hear the sound check. Except we're not as exciting as a band.
Yeah, there's no glamour behind the scenes here.
Or on the scenes. The scene.
I literally just got a dirty look from my wife because I abandoned her as she put the kids to bed. So.
It's for a good cause.
It is. So I told her.
Nice. Well, listen, I think we should kick it off. We got a lot to talk about today, and as our first guest is going to be joining us soon, let's jump right into it and get it going. It's been a few weeks since we did this, so we might be a little rusty around the edges, but let's try it out. Hello and welcome to U.S. Rugby Happy Hour Live. Thank you all for so much for tuning in. Happy Hour Live brings you interviews with some of the biggest names in the U.S. rugby scene. And since this is a post-MLR championship week, we invited on 4 champions in their own right. Free Jacks head coach Scott Mathie, MLR play-by-play announcer Ben Holden, Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News, and the excitable Matt McCarthy of the Rugby Rapid will be joining us tonight. If you are listening in live on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, you can leave comments in the chats on those platforms, or come on over here on the Twitter Spaces on the mobile app on Twitter, and you can even ask your own question of our guest live tonight. Also, if you're not already following us, please do so at Eagles Overseas and Rugby Morning to get updates on future shows and news about USA Rugby, Major League Rugby, and much more. I am Bill Baker of Eagles Overseas, and with me, as always, is the I want to say a word I want like luscious. That's not even a real word. Let's just go with Rugby Morning's John Fitzpatrick. What's up, Fitzy?
Hey, Bill, that was kind of like a late night kind of introduction.
Hello.
This is a children's show.
Is it? Is it?
Bill, I'm surprised you're coherent. I thought you and others would have some issues getting back from Chicago.
We were lucky. We were very lucky. We had issues getting there. Our flight out of Logan was delayed from 8:40 a.m. to 1:45 p.m., which would have gotten us in after the game. But that's not good. But we were able to get over on Spirit. They got us some tickets there. We got there plenty of time, able to tailgate with lots of Free Jacks fans, San Diego fans, lots of those Legionnaires in the parking lot. But we got there. I mean, it was a great day. Oh man, I'm exhausted because the next day was a day that was a long day. Those were delays, 3.5 hours delay. Although we were able to have a really good conversation with Patrick Chung from the Patriots ownership group. Nice guy, and I think he mentioned your name, Fitzy. No, I'm just was trying to be nice to you. I don't think he did. But
Huh?
that man, he owes me money.
To drink?
But yeah, all good, man. What'd you think of the game?
I thought I thought it was a fitting game for a great season in MLR, and we'll get to it in a little bit. Considering all the stuff that happened at the end of last year, if you're MLR, you've got to be pleased with how everything shook out, and 2 best teams all season long battling it out to the very end. Unfortunate for San Diego, but congrats to New England Free Jacks and the Free Jacks fans that are out there, and then traveled to Chicago to witness it firsthand.
Yeah, it was a great showing from the Free Jacks fans. A lot of them there, and they were louder also than the Legion fans. I do think the Free Jacks fan had a one-up because their game was first, their conference finals. And, they won, and many of them got online right away and bought tickets and got airfares. And so that helped their cause, the fans' cause at least. But, yeah, great match. You want those games close. You want them exciting, especially this year since it was broadcasted over in Europe as well. You don't want to blow out. You want a good, hard game. Good announcing, and like I said, we're going to have Ben Holden on later, one of the announcers. I think all around, I thought it was a great show, great entertainment experience. Even though apparently the viewership number is a little lower this year than last year, but overall I think it was a great experience, or at least good for the future of the game.
Yeah, I would agree, and I've got to ask you, Bill. I'm not surprised that the New England fans were loud and boisterous. I think that's just part of the sports culture there, which is awesome.
Right.
It'd be nice for San Diego to be a little bit louder. They've got that great Snapdragon Stadium. But I did
Yeah.
have a question for you, since it was a neutral site and you couldn't quite hear it on TV. But when either kicker was kicking, was there any like booing or anything or loud noise
No.
going on? Which again, I don't have a problem with, right? So long as each home crowd develops their own thing and the teams are accustomed to it. But was there any of that going on? I couldn't hear it.
Not that I recall. I mean, I was all over the place, but Jason Pacho was taking a couple of kicks. I think it was pretty quiet. Obviously, mostly Free Jacks fans, or not mostly, a good amount. A lot of Central fans there, Chicago Hounds fans, Legion fans. I think they were all pretty quiet during the kicks. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't. Funny thing is, I haven't watched the game on TV yet. I really do want to tune in. Apparently, it was a good broadcast.
Well, yeah, because the reason why I asked is there was one moment in the game where Hooley lined up for a kick, and I can't recall if he made it or missed it, but he kind of looked back behind him, almost like he was looking in the crowd, like he was giving some of the dirty look. And I almost wanted to be like, that had to be Phil Harris from the Jacks Rangers. So, Phil, if you can confirm that was you heckling Will Hooley, please do not hold back and let us know.
I don't know. He was on his feet quite a bit, swinging around the towel and everything. But I don't know. That doesn't sound like something Will Hooley would do. He doesn't seem like a bitter man, that I know at least.
Maybe it was Shaq. Maybe Shaq stuck around.
Hey, speaking of, did you see the size of the ball in his hands as he was bringing out the midfield pregame?
Yeah, I thought he had a size 3 like kid's ball in his hand. I didn't realize that was a full size ball.
Isn't that funny? It was hilarious. Yeah, it was a great experience, and again, we can get into it here in a second. But actually, real quick, I'd love to get Phil up here right now if Phil's able to talk at all. He might be tuning in on a browser, but if you're on your phone, Phil, why don't you jump in real quick and give us your experience of the game if you're able to. If not, no worries. We'll get to that eventually. But in the meantime, you know what? Let's do this. Let's switch gears a little bit. We got Bryan Ray right now. He's already sitting here watching a little bit, listening a little bit, also watching his phone. So let's hold off on Bryan. The producers are in my ear saying, "Wait, we have Jacks Rangers." Are you there, Phil?
I am here. I'm being summoned against my will. No, I'm just kidding. I'm making some clips right now to post online, but I can give a little insight about that kick that you guys were referring to, Fitzy. So what took place is that was late in the game at that point, and in my section 130.
Yeah.
Where the Free Jacks section was supposed to be, there was a bunch of rowdy Rangers, if you will, that were giving him a hard time prior to the kick. So there was definitely some ruckus that was taking place, some boo birds in Will Hooley's direction. And you are correct. He turned around and looked at that section and kind of gave him a little bit of a look after he kicked it through the uprights. Now, it wasn't like go F yourself type of look, but just kind of like a look like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. And as he's trotting off, he then, pulls a hammy and has to come out of the game. So I thought that was very, very interesting turn of events there. That was then. That's exactly when it took place. Yeah, he's trotting, towards the center, and he pulls up with a hamstring injury. Very, very odd.
Huh.
So there you go.
Yeah, Will had a great game.
Well, Phil, I've got.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Bill. I got two follow-up questions for Phil. One, Phil. One. When do you take your Canadian residency, whatever test? Because I know you're soon to be a Canadian, the Canadian Free Jacks. But then, two. When are you going to give Andrew Quattrin his Shield medal back, man? Come on.
Yeah, let me clarify. So the first one is I love the country of Canada. I love spending time up there, especially in Ontario. Those people are really nice. Montreal's, beautiful people, not as nice, but still worth the trip to head up there. Love the country of Canada. So whenever they are willing to take me, I'll definitely take that dual passport. But other than that, I will say that I was a little. I was in shock after what took place, but we reviewed the tape, and it wasn't Q giving me his own medal. He was wearing a medal, and then he handed me. He put one around my neck. So I'm not sure whose medal that was supposed to be, but it's been around my neck since Saturday. So I'm not giving it up. I've only taken it off to shower. So
Well, check your bag because you might have the missing camera too.
That sucks.
hilarious.
Oh.
Yeah, I just grabbed a couple souvenirs. I didn't realize it would be a big deal. I don't know what to tell you.
You know what,
Just kidding.
Fitzy, I ran into Phil on the field. I did a quick interview with him, and we're going to post that one day here, Phil. But, dude, you were like a kid in a candy store. You were like, you just met your biggest hero, and you were like, look what I got. You were like, man, you were almost crying, man. I love that. That's awesome.
Just let me jump in here for
Yeah.
a second, Bill. I definitely did cry when he gave it to me. I cried ugly tears when he put that medal around my neck. So I want everybody to understand that I did cry, and it was a beautiful moment, and I will never, ever forget it. So, yeah, I was definitely a kid in a candy store. I mean, my favorite team, just won the Shield, man. Like, what's better than that? Nothing.
Yeah, good for you. I'm not jealous at all. Now, for those of you, I think most of you know who Phil is. If you don't know Phil, he really is truly one of the biggest Free Jacks fans out there from day one. And we share the same row. We've been sharing the same row of seats since Weymouth, since the very first game. So it's
several
a
years,
special row. Yeah.
Bill, I will say this just to give you a little bit of comfort. When the Eagles win the World Cup, whenever that is, I'm sure you'll get yourself a winner's medal and get to hoist the Webb Ellis there.
I just want to get on the plane with a team to get there. I mean, maybe it's here in 31. Let's not talk about that. All right, Phil, stay around, Phil. I'm going to drop you down in the room here, but we'll get you back up and ask some questions later, everybody.
All right, cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. All right, with that said, this is live internet, I guess we can call it. And so we got to do a little juggling because our first guest is running behind, but our second guest is here, so we can get him on now and get things going with these interviews. And Ben, I know you're here with us, and when you're ready to talk, I'm going to give you this most amazing intro. So don't say anything yet because you're going to love this. You're going to cry just like Phil did when he got the medal. Are you ready for this? Our first guest, fresh off the Birmingham, Michigan ice, Major League Rugby play-by-play announcer, Ben Holden. Everyone, big round of applause. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, guys. Good to be on with you. Thanks so much. It's still feeling the after effects of the weekend, and doing well. It's cool to talk with you guys. I appreciate the invite. It means a lot.
No, and thank you so much for accepting it. It's always great to have guys like you on here. We have a good variety of people on this show, from players to coaches to broadcasters like yourself. And talking about a little bit of your background for people who don't know you, Ben. I mean, you called your fair share of different sports. College lacrosse, soccer, ice hockey, and now rugby. And this time, you were not only calling play-by-play in the States on Fox, but also in Europe on BT Sport. And I said that right, BT Sport. Did you ever, I don't know, get a chance to throw out maybe a couple of English rugby phrases? Ever thought about that during the match on Saturday?
No, just tried to stay in my lane, man. And, the backstory really to me getting into this sport, excuse me, is I was at CBS for 13 years.
Nice.
I got one network opportunity, and that was in 2019 when I called the Seattle-San Diego final.
Wow.
That was the first time I'd ever called rugby, and I've done about every sport under the sun and love them all. And this sport reminds me in a lot of ways of, I'm sure McCarthy, if he's on, can back me up because I know he's a big hockey guy like me.
Mm-hmm.
But it reminds me of hockey, just the way the people are, the way the athletes are, just the gratitude and what I found, the humility that the athletes, the coaches, and everyone involved, the fans included, they carry. And so I did Army football for 9 years, and the extent of my rugby viewing was going to the Army-Navy women's match with Jay Feely for a couple of years, and we were partners. And I was more on the sideline, just kind of, talking to people. I wasn't really paying much attention, and I was fascinated by it. And I got that chance at 19, and the last couple of years I'd been involved with MLR, but this year was they really gave me a big opportunity, and I put both feet in the pool and just tried to learn as much as I could. I mean, as you guys know, man, there's a lot of, I know they're called laws, but there's a lot of rules that are, there's so much going on. And I think, all the years I've done 20 years of college hockey and hockey in Russia and in the American Hockey League and all those places. And, it's fast moving. And I think that's part of what draws me to it and what I like about it. And like I said, all those other things that, I really appreciate. And I say it a lot on broadcasts that, for me, it was the first year I did it in 21. It was kind of like, it's okay to not know what's going on. And be the fan because it's so new here in the States, I think, to most people. But this year I felt like, a conversation I had with a couple of our executives, they were great conversations and it really motivated me to, again, put both feet in the pool and embrace the sport. And, hope we did that throughout the year or hope I did that throughout the year. And I finished Saturday was my 30th match of the season. So
wow.
I really love the sport. I love the people. I never thought I'd be doing rugby. And if you would have told me in almost 30 years of broadcast that the two network opportunities I would have gotten and have gotten would be for rugby, I would have told you were nuts. But, it's cool. I really enjoy it. Fortunate to work with so many good people. You guys all know all the people that I work with and, or know of them certainly. And it's a really cool thing for me. So I'm really, really glad to be, in the family, so to speak, with you guys.
Well, welcome to the family. I feel like I definitely feel like we've met. I've worked a bunch of the Frozen Fours as a producer.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've been involved with the broadcast
for ESPN.
ESPN and also NCAA directly with them
I didn't
for their
know
productions.
That.
Well, yeah, I think I yelled your name once. And you looked at me like, "Who the hell is this mother?" No, just kidding.
No kidding. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that.
No. We did meet one point, but it was one of those things. How you doing? That kind of stuff. It was never a "Hey, I'm Bill."
Okay.
That kind of, yeah. No worries.
Got it.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Well, it's nice to formally meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Same here.
You too.
Go on,
So
Fitz.
Ben, we understand you're a big. Yeah, Ben, we understand you're a big hockey guy. Bill mentioned that, and that.
Yep.
I understand. Did you lace up the skates recently for
Yeah.
a media all-stars game?
No, man. I play. I've been skating again. I started skating back in April. I played. The extent of my playing was through high school. I went to high school in Traverse City, Michigan, up north in northern Michigan, and no, I play in a group. I got summoned to play. I told my girlfriend, she's sitting over in the living room with me here. She came home. I said, I got summoned to skate again. No, I play every week with a group of guys, and that's
awesome.
I was assigned to the white side last night, and the white jersey I have in my bag is a little tight. It's a few years old, so I dug that one out of my collection. That's
Shrunk
the
in the
reason
closet,
I wore
right?
it last night. Yeah, exactly. I haven't gotten any bigger at all. Wink, wink. But no, I play every week, man. I love playing. I love the sport, and I don't know if I would have been able to play rugby, man. It's a different breed, man. It's I am fascinated at how do I say this? I'm fascinated. I guess I'll just put it this way. I'm fascinated that there aren't more injuries in this sport. It's amazing to me. And it's something else. That's John talking, right? John?
Yeah.
You guys do an awesome job. I watch your podcast every week. I get a lot of good stuff out of it, and thumbs up to you guys.
Thank
awesome
you.
stuff. Yeah. And, it just amazes me. And I think the thing that I mention a lot on the air is I try not to mention it too much, but the respect that the game is played with. And other sports, in my opinion, could take a cue from rugby. You see it in hockey, you see it in football, basketball, talking junk to the refs or, we get a little pushing and shoving in our sport here in rugby, but not like the others, man. And I have great respect for that. I'm blown away by those couple things.
Yeah, it's definitely a really neat aspect of the game that from all levels, right? From youth all the way up. And, it's good for the players to show personality here and there. And of course it's an intense game. So, there's going to be some scuffles and things, but, Ben, I got to ask if you're ever summoned to kind of lace up the rugby boots for an old boys match.
Oh boy.
What position are you playing?
I'm 200 pounds. So I don't know. I'd like to think I have good hands. So I'd probably go for the 2. I'd go for the hooker.
Hooker.
I don't know if I'd stand up or not. I'm a lot faster on ice than I am on my feet. And I'm not fast by any means, but I mean, I can move a lot. I can move pretty good out there for a 52-year-old guy. So, but I'd probably go with the hooker. I don't know. I mean, would you guys slot me at?
Oh boy, I'd say hooker or front row, definitely.
Okay.
You got great build for that. Great. I think hockey
Okay.
players make good front rowers. I'm not sure if there's any correlation there, but we'll just go with that.
I mean, if you're Ryan Reeves or somebody like that, you're wearing the 1 or the 3, or maybe you put him at the 8, depending on how fast he is. Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So listen, we let's talk a little bit about the game now. Let's jump into it. Your experience there at the match in Chicago. Quite the experience for the fans and you as well. Broadcasting the big game and on location for this one. For you specifically, Ben. Talk about that experience calling that game.
Really cool. And here's another little nugget for you guys in terms of my tenure in doing the sport. So in 2019, obviously I was on site at Torero. I was with Bryan Hightower and Stacy, and I looked at Bryan at one point and I thought we were having an earthquake, man, because that place was shaking. Literally, it was banging. So with that said, that's up until Saturday. That was the only rugby match that I've called in person.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, a lot of things we know have changed since COVID, especially in our industry. And one of the things is we showed everybody, all these executives and suits, whatever you want to call them, that we can do this stuff remotely. So you guys know, and I'm pretty sure most of the people that watch us know, that we're not on site. We're in a studio. I went to Indy 13 times this year.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Detroit, just outside, so it's about a 3-hour and 40-minute drive. And so, you lose a lot in that, in terms of being in the venue, being, feeding. I love energy, and I've always prided myself on having a lot of energy and rising in the big moment when you need to. And so, look, it works the way we're doing it.
Yeah.
It's certainly easier when I go to Indy on a Friday night and I got a Saturday night and a Sunday afternoon match where I don't have to travel, right? And I mean, I saw a lot of you guys got stuck in Chicago. It's just one example. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of positives, but you lose so much, and that takes me to your question, Bill. Is on Saturday, like, it was awesome, man. I mean, I woke up with my son. He came on the trip with me, and I looked out the window. I was up on the 4th floor right near the front of the hotel. And, there's people tailgating. I see the San Diego fans all decked out in their gear, and the Free Jacks fans are out there. And, there's tailgating going on. And it's just different. It's different when you're in the venue, when you're in the stadium, the arena, whatever it is. And you feed off of that energy. And it was awesome, man. I mean, it was really cool. And, Shaq's out there, and I mean the Hounds and all their people. I mean, a tip of the cap to them, because I mean, to do what they did and to bring in the people they did, I thought was pretty cool. I mean, Luke and I, my son, we went down afterwards, and I don't know a ton of the players, and I think that's something else that I like about being in the venue. And I will tell you, that's one area I spoke to Ryan Mathias for quite a bit after, and I worked one of the PR7's events with him and Madison Hughes last year, and got to know Ryan a little bit, and we had a really good conversation. And you just feel that, and you feel the energy, and you get to, for me, again, I haven't been around a ton of the players because I've only been on site for 2 matches and all the the really the I guess parts of 3 seasons I've done it. And I even said to Ryan, I go, next year, I'm already thinking ahead to next year. One of the things I want to try to do is I love talking to coaches, don't get me wrong, but there's something to be said when you can have a conversation with a player. And, I mean, we spoke to Colin Gross a little bit this year before a couple matches, just because of the West Point connection with me and obviously him going there. And I understand that place. And that's one thing I want to do next year on our broadcast, get more players, have that to use as information in the broadcast too. So experience was top notch. my son was with me, and that was pretty cool. He hasn't traveled with me in about 4 years. So I thought it was a hell of a show and well put together, well done. And I mean, you can't ask for a better match. I mean, I tell people all the time, guys, every time I put a headset on, all I hope for is a close, compelling game that goes down to the wire, and that's what we got.
Yeah, well said, Ben. Hey, Ben, thanks for joining us. If you could, stick around for a while if you have the time. We're going to go on to our next guest, have a few minutes with him, and you're welcome to add a question or two if you'd like. Maybe something you could have asked during the match if you had that chance.
Yeah, no problem. I'll hang around, sure.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right,
you guys too, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's jump forward, or behind and forward. I'm assuming he's still nursing a bit of a hangover. Let's all welcome New England Free Jacks head coach Scott Mathie. Hey, Scott.
How's it, guys? Sorry about that. You're right. The last couple of days have been a bit blurry, to be honest.
We'll forgive you. We'll forgive you.
I'm actually sitting here at the GM, and we've been going through some recruitment stuff for next year. So, yeah, my bad, guys.
I think we need to have some other questions lined up for you then. So just get some names ready for us. Anyway, Scott, first of all, congrats on winning the Shield, man. Congrats to you and the team.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Yeah, we've been pretty grateful for everything that's gone on, and really appreciative of everyone's comments and support after the game. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a season for you and the club. Obviously, this was the goal from the very beginning. What was the common message you and the coaching staff gave the team, week in and week out, to help achieve this goal of winning the MLR Shield?
I think it's we start the season with the overriding theme, and that was really about building. It was about two things really. It was about scoring the most tries and building the biggest audience, and we tied that into a theme around the road to Fenway, and trying to get a team that can play at a big venue. It was more a philosophical thing, if you will. But that's really was the week-to-week idea, is how can we get better at scoring tries on the field, and how do we get better at engaging more people and more audience. And that's obviously an organizational thing, but it was very much a player thing too, And then we just took lots of energy from that. So when we achieved success in that on both aspects, we definitely use that to motivate and encourage and drive energy, and we'd have many themes each week of tied into that greater theme. And so it was really that's the key element of where we're going from a big overall perspective.
Scott, reviewing the season a little bit, certainly it was a big loss to have Captain Josh Larson kind of drop early in the season. Certainly great from him to see him stick around. Everyone probably saw the Proven series, which is really neat, and we can ask some questions about that. But outside of him and maybe some other kind of minor injuries throughout the year, Mitch Wilson, Walker didn't get the chance to play in the final, and then a guy like Bryan came in at the end. It really seemed like the strength of this Free Jack squad was really just in the depth, and that when after 60 minutes or so, and some of the starters, so to speak, came out and the reserves came in, it seemed like there was no drop in talent, and that the team was continued to just, as you said, focus on scoring tries. Was that really a focus for you and the coaching staff during the offseason, really to build out that robust depth in the squad?
Yeah, definitely. I think TK has done a magnificent job of managing that and sourcing talent. And I think through the three of us, I think with Mike and looking after New Zealand recruitment, myself in South Africa, and TK with his broad knowledge of here, we very much recognize that for us to be successful, we needed, I think the year before we came a little bit unstuck with not having that depth. And, you need to be pushing at a squad of 36. You need players that are coming in from around the club, so you can get up to 38, 40, so that every single session you have a quality 15 on 15 training session. And the more you're training 15 on 15, the more you are able to replicate pressure, the more you're able to replicate transition scenarios, especially for us. And these things are so vital if you want a team that is going to be operating at the top of their game. And we just found this year we saw a massive, remarkable increase in our second team compared to last year's second team. I mean, there were some training sessions on Thursdays. I was like, have we picked the wrong 15? And that's great, because all it does is just sharpen the main side, and gets them prepared for what's about to come on the weekend. And then we felt that we just had really good preparation for each of those games.
And speaking of prep, Scott, actually, before I get into this question, I just want to remind listeners, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, go ahead and drop a question in those chats. Or if you want to come in here and ask our guest questions, drop over here on the mobile Twitter app and join us here, and you can do so as well. So anyone that's in here right now, if you want to come up and ask a question, you can do so by requesting on the bottom left. And you can ask anybody. You can ask Ben, who was on earlier, Scott, Mathie right now, or myself and Fitzy a question. And then our two new guests joining us soon as well. You can ask them questions. So Scott, let's jump to this game. Let's talk about game plan going into this match. The team looked to play, even more physical than usual. That's what it looked to me, at least from the stands. Since the first matchup with San Diego was so early in the season, though, were you able to take anything away from that match to help prepare for this rematch?
Not so much. Like, we took a lot at that time, so we learned some real tough lessons in that early game for the rest of our games. I didn't feel we lost the physicality battle I felt against them in round 3 or round 2?
2, I think.
Yeah, and I just felt we weren't, we still were trying to figure it out as a team, and we kind of didn't play the kicking game that we wanted to in that game. So for a variety of reasons, and we came up against obviously a very strong side. So for a variety of reasons, they were just better than us. And I think that really allowed us to refine what we wanted to really be about. We kind of knew, but I think with a lot of new players, sometimes you just got to drive that message a little bit harder. And it was something that kind of just aligned us to that. So not so much took many lessons from that game into the next one, but it definitely helped us on our progressing in our season. It was a really good learning curve.
Scott, I know it's tough to talk about individual players. So many had some big moments throughout the game. Certainly at the beginning there, Mitch Jacobson jumping on that loose ball and dotting down early there. But, I mean, just to name a couple, Milan, he played outstanding as usual, particularly the task of going head-to-head with, like, the great Ma Nanu and USA Eagle Marcel Brockie. But you also had Reese McDonald out there flying around all over the field. And then, of course, Jason Patros, a number of plays he made, player of the match, very deserving. Can you talk about some of those individual performances? And I guess, have you had a chance to look at the tape to pinpoint any one particular play that stood out for you?
I actually watched it last night for the first time. I think for me, if I look at those, do you talk about plays or players?
Yeah, players or plays, anything that in your mind.
I think what's definitely something that's still with me the whole season, but even more so in the final, is the ability of players like a Mitch Jacobson to raise their game even more, but also just how important that leadership is on that field in big games, and he's played a pivotal role in that. He's a leader of men, that guy, Mitch, and so he's been really vital to our success and really driving the team forward and holding standards. And so I thought he was exceptional on the weekend. But I think what speaks more to me, man, is just the guys that played well and have been the guys that have been playing well the whole time, and that's the consistency that really is great for me. That they get to a final and they just keep doing what they've been doing, because it's another game, So Vian Conradi, exceptional. Reese McDonald, Jason Potros, Leroux Milan, all these guys that we're seeing consistently perform at a high level in the season get to the playoffs and are doing the same thing. And that for me speaks to the fact that we got the process right in the week going up to the final. That we just did the same stuff. We treated it as another game, and these guys were able to perform again. And I think that's important. It's important that we stuck to that process.
There is one play, Scott, that really stood out for me, which I think really set up or sealed the win even before Milan scored the match-winning try. It actually led to Milan's try, and that was Patros, his clear out, his ruck clear out. To me, that play was as important, if not more, than any points in the tee. I mean, is that a team mindset? Like, no matter what position you play, it's where you are in the field. You do everything you can, including a fly half clearing out rucks.
No, that, like, at the beginning of the season, I remember having a conversation a few times in our backs meetings and just saying to the boys, if you play the short ball, you are relied on to clean. And because often you'll bail out as one of the ball players or the decision makers. Once you pass, you bail out the back, to kind of get the back, or to get the backs going again, or to direct traffic. But if you play the short ball, if it's not a pod or forwards, like, you've got to clean. And it was so good to see that come to fruition. But I mean, Poddy threw that whole bag of bones that he has into that clean too. You could just see, like, he recognized the importance of that moment and the importance that he needed to accelerate with everything he had to make that vital clean. But I agree with you. I think that was a really exceptional moment.
Yeah.
So, Scott, the season's over. You've had your fair share of Samuel Adams beers or others. You mentioned that you guys are, I guess, preparing for the off season already. I love it. The grind doesn't stop. Are you, you've got the collegiate draft coming up in August. Your staff had 2 picks last season. Are you guys looking for players out of that, or are you looking at players that are overseas, building into next year?
We're looking at a lot of things, to be honest. There's a lot of moving parts, from season structure to foreign player allowance to you name it. You know what I mean? Like draftees to players that aren't going to be in the draft but are domestic players of real note that have come on the radar. So there's just I just find there's a lot of things. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's many things that you just got to be on top of. And I find in this ever changing and young league, I think there's a lot of curveballs that come in too, and you got to be prepared to roll with each one. Thankfully we got the best GM in the league, so it definitely helps us.
Speaking of GM, Scott, and we're gonna introduce another guest here in a minute. Tom Kindly, amazing person. TK's done so much, and I love the guy personally. Talk about his importance to the team. I mean, he's been here for a while, and talk about his growth. I mean, he was here before you joined the team as well, but just talk about the relationship with him and how important he really is to this club.
Oh, you could argue that he is the club, but I think what's great with TK is the biggest thing is the man's humility and his work ethic.
Yeah.
So, he's not a guy that you can go, oh, well, he's the GM. He will be sweeping the floors and he will be unloading the bags and you name it. So everyone else comes before. Tom puts everyone else before himself, and I think that's something that's very noticeable, and I think that reflects well and reflects on what we're trying to create here, and I think he sets the tone for that. And he's done a variety of jobs too. He's been through from the bottom, done the conditioning stuff. He's done the analytic stuff with the US team. So he knows a bit about everything, and he knows the players here. So he's got a firm grip on what's good work and what's not, if you know what I mean. So he can hold people to account, and that he knows, what is required in those certain areas. So I think there's a lot of things at play there, and he's got grasp on that, and he's obviously grown leaps and bounds too now in his role as GM, and I think that's pretty evident.
Well, he's got a bright future ahead of him. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Scott, man, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're busy right now recruiting, getting ready for the next season. You know what? Actually, real quick, I'm going to steal this one from someone else, but are you sticking around? Are you another season?
Yeah. I'll be on you. So if you want to ask me any questions, or
no. I don't mean tonight. I mean next season, 2024.
Yeah, no, I'm around.
Okay, good. Well, listen, thanks for coming on, and again, congratulations on the championship this year.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Fitz, I think we got to jump right into the next person. This has been some really good input from the first couple of guests we've had so far. And I don't really know. He's been on our show before, and all I can say is it's just that he's if you follow MLR, you know who this guy is, and he knows probably more than anyone else. And I mean, after a few beers, even I don't think I know as much as he does. So, let's all welcome Bryan Ray. Bryan, how you doing, buddy? Unmute. There you go.
Yes. I don't even know how to use the mute thing. Never mind anything about rugby. You guys are crazy.
Do you have dial-up in Halifax, or are you?
Hey, man, I live in an igloo up here. I don't know how to work these things.
Oh, man. You know what? Bryan, what did you think of the match?
It was great. I mean, it was everything we wanted, right? I mean, two teams with ridiculous winning streaks going in. It was such a great story heading in. And the two best teams, I mean, never mind the records. If you just look at how they played this year, they were the two best teams all season. The teams that had the best depth, the best playing style, everything about them. It was just a terrific build-up, and the match itself was everything we wanted. It came right down to the end. Everything was in doubt until that final little knock-on. So I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Bryan, it seemed that the neutral site championship venue worked. Chicago did a great job. Do you anticipate it'll be neutral site moving forward, keeping in Chicago for a couple of years? What do you think?
I mean, there's an argument that I think a fair one, that if that game was in San Diego, it does 15 to 20K in terms of attendance. But I mean, you can't guarantee that they're going to be there, right? So that's a bit of a gamble. So yeah, I think that they will keep doing the neutral site, and you'd have to say it worked. I think they did a terrific job marketing. I mean, look at 5 times as many people this year as there was last year. So that says it all, really. So something to build on. I think they can improve the whole, having the Dropkick Murphys and Shaq, which, by the way, neither of those things really interest a guy like me, but obviously some people are really interested in that. I just like to see them add like one more kind of game or two games around it, a meaningful fixture, like women's premier all-star game or something like that, or an MLR all-stars versus an Eagles 15, something like that. I think would really seal that whole weekend up.
It's kind of the tale of two cities here. Last year, obviously, you mentioned, lower fans, whatever else, and they didn't have time to prepare to a book Dropkick Murphys or Ramones, although they're not around anymore. But the planning, no matter where it is, really sets up this opportunity to have, the Dropkick Murphys, DJ Diesel, and whoever else. I understand Tommy Lee from Motley Crue also DJs. We'll get him next year, but. I've been there. But I mean, that's the right direction, right, Bryan? These finals are the right direction where we want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. You want bigger occasion. I mean, I think if you look at the Free Jacks, they're an awesome example. I got a chance to go down at the end of March and see the whole, the show that they put on there. It's a whole day festival. You get there and there's, they got bands playing after the game. They've got entertainment before. They've got stuff for the kids that's going on. They got the beer tent going, all the craft beers you can get. And they make a really a full day experience. And I think that's the recipe that MLR has to use. And certainly they used that for the final, and it paid off. So, yeah, that's it. You just got to make the biggest event out of it as possible.
Sorry, Fitzy, real quick. Listeners, if you'd like to come up here and ask a question, go ahead and request in the bottom left of the Twitter mobile app. If you want to ask a live question, we still have Scott Mathie listening in. Ben Holden, broadcast play-by-play announcer of the game on Saturday and many other games. And right now we have Bryan Ray joining us. So come on up, ask a question if you'd like. I think I'm still starting to lose my voice again after Saturday's match. So come on in.
Bryan, I wanted to get your thoughts on the 2023 season, kind of overall, right? So last year's season ended kind of funky, right? Two teams kicked out, and then it seemed like a little bit of maybe a rushed announcement to bring Chicago in. But all things being said, it seemed like it was a pretty successful season across the board. Certainly, some teams had better attendance than others. The product on the field looked pretty good. I guess similar to Bill's question, is the league kind of moving in the right direction? Is there anything that they should be concerned about going into next season?
Well, I think you kind of mentioned it there, the attendance. I think this year we really started to see a swing in terms of teams that are building that link to the community successfully and teams that aren't. It looked pretty obvious when you're watching the games live which teams had, fans in there and who didn't. I think that has to be a concern, certainly for some teams and certainly for the league itself. And they got to really look at, if they're going to take that next step to the next level, you have to build up the marketing and the whole production, the whole game thing. Like I keep using the Free Jackson example. San Diego did also a fantastic job. Their attendance numbers were, I think, the highest ever. Their average this year. I'm sure it was. It was fantastic to see. Even Chicago in their first year, to their credit, I do think they were rushed coming in, but they did a pretty good job and had some really promising numbers there. Even though it looks like it's a little bit empty in that big stadium, but they did reasonably well. I think that's a concern. Definitely is as some of those teams maybe not doing as well. In general, though, I think the league is moving in the right direction. We're still young. 6 years in? They're doing pretty well. I think if you look at the standard of play, it was stepped up this year for the most part. Even the bottom teams, as we saw, Dallas and Chicago gave people real problems running down the stretch. Unfortunately, my Arrows didn't quite have it this year, but I'm convinced that they'll be back next year as long as Scott and his Free Jacks don't keep stealing the best Canadian players. But I think there's a lot to say that this, to come out of this year that was really good that they can build on next year. And there's always room for improvement. You can follow my Twitter. I'm always complaining about this, that, and the other thing. But honestly, I think most fans don't even notice the stuff that I'm bitching about. So, it was a good season.
That was some serious marketing for your Twitter page.
It might not be around much longer at the rate Twitter's going.
Oh my God, we'll just start threading. Well, let's talk about one team in particular. I don't worry, Fitz, I'm not going to talk about my playing days. I played in Atlanta a number of years, and so I was actually surprised when I heard they were getting an expansion team years ago. They're barely drawing 1,000 fans a game. How does a team like that stay around much longer?
I think that's, I wasn't going to name them, but they're my number one concern. Certainly their attendance was not good this year. And it's a real shame because, when they started up with Scott and Marcus, so much promise and, the whole Life University connection, they had that great thing going. And I really think, I'm just going to say it bluntly, the rebrand was a terrible mistake. Yeah. And it certainly did not resonate with fans at all. You saw it with the numbers. You saw it with the reaction at the time. And I don't know, how to fix that, to be honest. It's not like you can turn back time or anything, right? So,
Bryan, it's actually a pretty passionate fan base because we had on the woman that runs the team, and I'm sorry, it's going over my head right now, early in the season, and that is one of our
Amanda Windsor.
Amanda. Yeah, that was one of our most listened to programs or shows, and all these Atlanta fans were tuning in, and they were upset. So they got the fans.
And so something has gone badly wrong there, and they just, I hope they can find a way to fix it. I know that certainly team ownership is I don't know if people know that, but Eric Anderson, who owns the Free Jacks, also owns them right now through his, his Rugby global kind of company. But I know that they are trying to look for new owners because it's obviously not ideal to have. We've seen how that was a problem. Now Eric's not going to do anything crazy like what we saw before with someone who will go unnamed. But I know they're trying to find a little bit more stability on the ownership side. So hopefully they can do that. I hope that they can turn things around there because it would be a shame to see that team, to lose that team.
Bryan, let's move forward to 2024 for a second here. Their MLR is expanded again, right? Everyone, of course, knows about the Miami Sharks. I think they've made one player announcement so far, but
yeah, they've got some good ones on the way.
Okay, I'm sure you know.
Yeah, they're good.
mostly South American influence. Can we
Yeah,
anticipate?
that's a good guess.
Okay. But my question is, just relating back to this past season in Chicago, will there be another kind of expansion draft process for Miami where essentially all the clubs have to, leave guys available for Miami to select?
I would imagine there would be. I mean, I think we have to wait and see. Is there any kind of situation where one of the teams is not returning next year? I don't know that right now. I certainly, I'm anticipating 13 teams next season. But I would also, in that instance, I would anticipate that there would be some kind of dispersal draft because, look, I mean, there's only so many domestic players, out there, obviously, and they need to fill that somehow. So, they're not all going to come from, the local Florida area, although they do have some strong rugby down there. So hopefully they can certainly find some local talent. And, hopefully we'll get some guys coming up from the college ranks this year, and maybe some of the guys that went undrafted last year and have built themselves up through the academy programs. But yeah, I would guess that they'll have to do some kind of, expansion draft kind of thing. And you could see some players who didn't get a lot of playing time this year moving over there.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, if you're listening, I got a quick question for you. Hopefully, you got your ears on.
Yeah.
Question is basically we just asked Bryan. It's like with your team winning the championship, it's hard. It's hard to keep the same nucleus as players. With those moving on to other opportunities. Do you share those concerns that some of the players will move on? Are you worried about next season with the current nucleus you have now?
I think it's always a concern. I think you do well. Players get opportunities. I think that's also something to celebrate. So that's the one thing. So it's bittersweet, but I think we really celebrate guys moving on, like to better to bigger jobs. I mean, even though we want to keep them, we've got to do that, and sometimes it pays it back. Like we ended up getting Walker back, and he went to Japan. So I think there's that part. But also the other problem when you do well is that you come under more pressure on the salary cap because your players, rightfully so, want increases and they deserve a little bit more pay, but the cap doesn't change. So
right,
that's the difficulty. Is it's now trying to find space to have a squad that you want to bring out next year and achieve the same things, but you obviously have less ability to contract the same squad, and hence you make tough decisions, and then your fan base is like, well, why is he going, and how can we let him go, and all these things. But it's a pretty tough model to and it's it is what it is. But I think that's the challenge now is really trying to get that right.
Well, by the way, I did have a good conversation with Reese after the match, and he did say he wants to come back. So just put that down there.
No, we're really proud of what he's achieved.
Yeah.
He's been exceptional for us.
Thanks, Scott.
Good man.
Bryan, I wanted to quickly jump back and talk college here for a second, and not to ask you to make sense of the U.S. college rugby scene, because I don't think anyone can make sense of that right now. But my question more so is, speaking of the collegiate draft, it seemed like last year Sam Gala was kind of the clear-cut number one. He was going to go number one overall, and he did. Is there a sense of a clear-cut number one U.S. college player who may get drafted first overall this year?
I haven't. It kind of depends on who declares, right? I think we saw last year, particularly with a whole lot of Canadian talent who would have been, in my view, top five, if top 10 at least, if not top five, of several players, that didn't actually declare for the draft, and part of that is because of the whole financial thing. As Scott just mentioned, the salary cap, you've only got so much money you can pay guys. And for a kid who's coming out of a university who maybe has a promising, economics degree or something like that, going into business pays a whole lot more than playing an MLR, even if they might love rugby. So I think we have to see who's actually going to declare. I haven't seen the list of who's declared yet. Certainly one who comes to mind, Larry Williams from West Point. Props of American, American props of quality are tough to find. So if he's in it, I would say he's probably worth looking at. But yeah, it's really tough to kind of make that call without seeing who's actually declared.
Bryan, so speaking of salary cap, it's probably a really dumb question. Actually, it really is. Do you get more value with the Canadian dollar or the American dollar? See, dumb question. Anyway, don't answer that. What about former Premiership players? What about more overseas players coming over this way? And obviously, we're down 3 or 4 teams in Premiership. Championship is picking up. Is there any expectations, any names out there where like, okay, that'd be great. I think this player should come over and play.
Yeah, I think certainly offers are going to, those and those, their agents will be calling up GMs and so on in MLR. I'm certain that some of them will be looking, and it's because it's an exciting place to go. I mean, obviously the most exciting thing would be to get a huge contract to go to France, but that's not coming for everybody. And if you look at the trends we're seeing in European rugby, those opportunities for players are actually getting less. Squads are less, their budgets are decreasing, and they're tightening up on their, kind of foreign eligibility in their own competition. Certainly the French, their GIF program, and in England, their EQP thing. So now the thing with MLR, again, as Scott mentioned, is, you've got that international player limit. We're not sure, are they going to make changes to that for next season or the year after or soon? There's certainly rumors that it's going to be going down a little bit, so that reduces opportunities, and all of a sudden those international players, their opportunities here are less. So you've got that. And the other issue is visas. We've seen, we're still seeing significant visa delays for players. So, from a recruiting standpoint, for someone like TK, he's got to go out and find somebody, and maybe it takes too long to get a visa to get them in time, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of variables when you're recruiting players from overseas. You kind of have to have them talk to them now in the next few weeks and get them sorted out. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see, but certainly I think the opportunity is there for some of those guys who aren't getting deals in the Premiership to come over. We saw, for instance, Tommy at Bonbon over here briefly. He was with the Leicester Tigers Academy. He was here with Houston, but he's actually back I think he's at school back in the UK now. But younger players like that, anyways, would be interesting.
Bryan, who's your MLR Player of the Year?
Yeah, well, I think it's got to be one of the Free Jacks. And the two guys who stood out for me, I had a long kind of flip-flop on this, almost had to flip a coin. But, Jason Patras and Vian Conradi have both been absolutely magnificent this year. In the end, Patras got the nod in the final. And, Bill, you mentioned that ruck. That one stood out for me as well. When he hit that ruck, I said, well, there's your Player of the Year just for that ruck. But you got to fly half a ways, 180 pounds soaking wet to, and that kind of thing, to set up the winning try. I thought that was fantastic. So I just think his poise, coming over and filling Walker's boots, we could say that. But now we're almost like, wow, I mean, Patras was sensational this year. So I think I would go with him.
But I got another question. You may have seen that Sports Business Journal article that came out last week, and it was about growth in the U.S., potential expansion markets. I thought there were some very interesting cities that were listed: Nashville, Orlando, of course, L.A. Raleigh was one. I think that makes sense because maybe USA Hawks, maybe that's where they're kind of headquartered and stuff, and then somewhere overseas. But I thought it was interesting that a city like St. Louis, which had been kind of rumored over the past couple of years, was not listed. Any of those cities, from what you're hearing, maybe potentially emerging as maybe the next market MLR is expanding to?
Yeah, some of those were kind of interesting, and to be honest, they don't jump out. I mean, Raleigh, I think, is really an interesting one. But I mean, you look at a place like Orlando, and you're like, well, how about we see how Miami does? I mean, why would we have another Florida team before we've even got this one established? And to me, I think the ones, you got to look at the West. Let's get some awards. Everybody knows the Bay Area needs a team. Everybody knows Vancouver needs a team. For God's sakes, get a team in Vancouver. And obviously they'd love to have a team back in LA at some point. So that's the kind of thing. Midwest, Chicago's done well. It would be great to see St. Louis. Unfortunately, that bid doesn't look like that's going through anytime soon. So, hopefully another one can surface up there. Certainly, St. Louis or Kansas City, where Kansas City was originally supposed to be in the league in the very first year, and then didn't quite make it. So it'd be nice to see another Midwest team as well. Look, there's tons of places. that would be awesome for MLR teams. But at the same time, you got to temper that with, getting the talent right and the speed of the league, the growth there. Vancouver just stands out for me. Number one is Canadian, but number two, it's just such a obvious. It seems to have everything there is ready for an MLR team except for someone with a bag of money.
Bryan, do you obviously Toronto you pay attention to, but do you put more weight on teams? Say like Toronto has tries to get more Canadian qualified players. Utah does for USA. Dallas. Do you put what do I mean by that? Do you give more credit to them for trying that way?
For trying to get Canadian players?
Well, USA International is on one team, or Canadian International is on another team. So Toronto's trying to have more Canadians. Let's say Utah is proud about their USA players.
Oh, I mean, every team kind of has their own identity kind of thing. Obviously, Dallas went very Argentinian this year. We've seen, Houston in the past, very South African, although they mixed it up, had a few Kiwis there this year. I don't think it really matters as long as you commit to whatever it is you're doing and you get the best players. Obviously the Arrows being the only Canadian team, it's just better for them to get more Canadian players. And New England, of course, being the champions that they are, bringing lots of Canadians. So, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. So I just think I like to see the different kind of, mixes in teams. In New York, we've traditionally seen a lot of New Zealanders. I like to see those different flavors in teams. That just, to me, it makes it more entertaining and gives the team a little bit of identity. So I'm not sure I give it credit per se. Obviously, I lean towards the Canadians, but no, I just think it's fun.
Well, at this point, and this is my opinion, we got to put a good product on the field to get people in the stands and like the game. I don't care who it is. Obviously, I cover the Eagles quite a bit, but the more we can get out there, the better as far as that goes. But I mean, we got to put a good product out there, and at least at this point in the league, maybe in 5 years, maybe really start restricting it as we get a better Canadian and American player base. But again, this league needs to survive and needs to sell tickets and get on TV. So I'm fine with that. But also, Bryan, before we send you off, we're going to go to one listener question, and obviously he's well known as a big Free Jacks fan. Again, Phil, come back on. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good, Bill. Thanks for having me back on here. Just a really quick question for Bryan. We were talking earlier about teams that are struggling with attendance and how emerging markets, specifically like the Bay Area or Vancouver, don't have teams. Do you foresee any future where relocation comes into play, where, current owners are selling at a discounted price to potential owners of a new franchise to avoid maybe a full-on franchise fee to move, to get a discounted deal here to move teams to a different location?
Yeah, I think that's certainly on the table. I don't know, how much of a deal they get on the franchise thing. I assume they get something or other, but I don't see. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I think the franchise rights, yes, could move, but it's pretty hard to kind of move a whole group of players when you look at the kind of money that they're getting paid. I mean, you can't really compel guys to move, say, across from, Pacific Northwest all the way down to the south or something like that, or who knows where, until you're really paying, some real money. So, yes, I can see a franchise being moved as far as the rights go, but I don't think it would be exactly the same team as took the field, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Thank you, Bryan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
Bryan, one more question for you, just as we close out here. Certainly, the U.S. Rugby Players Association has generated a lot of buzz and noise around their efforts to unionize for the players in MLR. I know MLR is, maybe a little bit of an arm's reach for that. Let's get through the MLR final. But do you see that? I don't want to call it an issue, but do you see that maybe kind of getting resolved before the 2024 season kicks off?
Well, I don't know where the whole vote thing stands at this stage as far as, I know they were trying to actually formalize that union and so on. I think I kind of have to agree with some of the criticism that MLR leadership hasn't done the best job in kind of trying to at least, talk to them and play. Now, to be fair, I don't know what conversations have taken place behind closed doors, but certainly the comments that have come from leadership in the public, arena have not been the best. I think that's a fair comment. So I'd like to see them at least, have a chat with them. Look, you don't have to, give every demand that they're going to have. Obviously, they want the most that they can get for the players. And look, I think everybody wants the players to get paid, but you've got this issue where you've got to get, you've got to have stability in the league at the same time. You certainly don't want the situation like we're seeing in England, where you have these tremendous teams that are completely folding up because of horrible financial mismanagement. So there's that as well. I don't know about resolve. It's not like you can put in, they want, nice grass fields and all our, all the stadiums, whatever. It's not like you could build that overnight, right? That's a pretty lofty demand from them. But hopefully they can get some dialogue going and kind of get moving in the right direction on some of the things. I do agree with them that the salary cap needs to move up a little bit. The owners have to, kind of front up a little bit and understand that to get better players and get the standard of American players, you just got to pay them a little bit more. I'm not talking about, a tenfold increase or anything, but something significant, because the increases we've seen in the past 3-4 years just have been very minimal. So I think that needle needs to move up a little bit. So hopefully they can at least kind of play ball with them on that, and maybe get some of these health coverage issues that are frankly legitimate questions. Some of that working in the right direction anyways.
Bryan, man, thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. It's always a pleasure hearing your input, and we can't wait to see what kind of stuff you're angry about on Twitter.
I'm an angry guy. Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
Thanks, Bryan. And Ben, if you're there,
thanks, bro.
Where are we going to see you next?
Yeah, I'm here.
Where can fans find you next? What are you going to be doing next?
I'll be doing the final of the PR7s in first weekend of August. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, and my vote, I love Chicago. I'm a Midwest guy, but my vote, my vote next year is Miami for the final.
Hey.
Oh, you mean like central location, or they're in the final?
No, hell no. They're not making it. No, that's the neutral site, man. That's the neutral site.
All right, sounds like a road trip. Ben,
yeah, that'd be an epic road trip.
Absolutely. Ben, thank you a ton for joining us today.
You guys too. It's really cool to be on with you guys, and great season. Enjoyed it. Congrats to New England, and I love Reese McDonald, man. I think that guy's an absolute gamer. I know Scott and I've talked about him, and what a gamer he is. So congrats to their side. They deserved it, and they earned it. And thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Ben. Talk again soon.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, Scott. Last thing for you. What are we looking for? Do you need an old, I don't know, number 8, about 53-year-old number 8?
If you're gonna cost under 10K, then that'll be amazing. Yeah.
It might actually cost me a lot more than that for medical bills, but fine.
No, sure. No, we're just getting into it now. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks, and we'll let the chips fall where they will.
Of course, and we're all the rugby fans look forward to hearing which teams are picking up which players. So it's always fun for us to keep track of that. So good luck with all that. Good luck in the off season. We hope to get you back on here again soon.
Great, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Scott.
Cheers.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We've been off for a few weeks, and we finally got our breath back. We had a long weekend with the finals, with the Shield. It's been amazing to touch base with people again. Unfortunately, Matt McCarthy wasn't able to make it tonight, but we'll get him back on again another time. With that said, I think it's time to go. It's well past 10. Thank again for tuning in. Check us out next week. We'll definitely be back next week for another show. And then, let's keep going from there. Don't forget to follow Eagles Overseas and Rugby Morning on Twitter, Instagram, and other social media channels, including Thread. Check us out and stay tuned for the next show. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great night.